Hi Cancer, welcome to Garden of Mythos and your mid-January 2024 reading. Please note this may not resonate with all of you. It is a general reading. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below in the description of this video. Cancer, we're going from the Devil to the Hierophant, and that's such an odd path, but it makes sense for you. It makes sense for, how you've operated up to this point, but also the things that you've dealt with privately. Because I feel like the bigger things, or the things that, might have been traumatic, might have been, for some of you, even devastating, or just, the slings and arrows of life, the way that you've dealt with them has been deeply internal. And I don't see much reaching out for support, even though you might know that there are people around you that would willingly give you the support. Or even maybe if they have tried to, it's still a thing where you're kind of protecting your pain, and you're protecting your process of dealing with pain. And that's worked for you for quite a while. And yet at the same time, it's also produced this sort of devil energy where it's, I've been alone to deal with these things, and maybe you even think that people don't actually care, or, maybe they don't actually understand what you've been going through. Or if they did, they wouldn't care, or something like that. There'd be like maybe a breakdown of a relationship. Or perhaps you're just afraid of people seeing your pain. But what that has done is produce some toxicity within you. And I don't see this as, you're out to hurt anyone or anything like that. I see this toxicity more as I'm trying very hard to protect my inner world, my inner self, to the point where perhaps I am unwilling or unable to extend empathy past a certain point, or really connect with other people. You can make a show of it, you can pretend, you can even, get to a certain level of depth with other people. But there's this sort of, and I'm not sure you're aware of it, Cancer, because it's also something that has protected you. It's also something that you've clung to, that harder shell, that part of you, that is very much, take no shit. And I'm not telling you to take shit, of course, but perhaps it's gotten too protective or too harsh. And that softer side of you that you've been trying to keep safe and trying to not allow the world to manipulate, control, or change has been isolated. It's kind of like putting your inner child in a room to keep them safe, and not realizing that that isolation also does damage. You don't have to be vulnerable with everyone, but I think it's time to be vulnerable with the right people. I think it's time to expose yourself with the right people, with safe people, with people that you already know and have built a rapport with and a record with, people that that are safe, people that want to know what's going on with you. But I also wonder, Cancer, I feel like there's almost a disdain for the things that you've gone through, for your own pain. Almost as if you think that exposing these things about you would be exposing weaknesses. So it might be time to look at and start to reconstruct your isms and your ideologies. Because underneath them, there's something very wounded. Now, Cancer, I feel like some of you may be dealing with a person or situation that, regardless of how much you try to refrain or control the situation or keep yourself out of the situation, it kind of puts you in this chaos. Maybe that's emotionally, it could be, in life in general, but it's to where you don't know up from down. It just throws the stability up in the air. And you've gotten really used to that. Not just with this situation or person, but kind of in general as well. But I don't think that that is necessarily healthy to stay in long term, or to try to I don't know the word I want to use there. Try to control, maintain, accept. Because whatever you've been doing so far, yes, you've had things work, but at the same time, you're still being pursued by this shadowy devil energy. There are still things that are calling you to break away from. And I think a lot of that is self-imposed. And I think mostly it has to do with your emotions, your emotional reactions to the world, what you think about emotions in general, what you think about weakness, what you think about vulnerability, what you think about empathy, and the places where you've become a little jaded or hardened or even toxic. Those are the places that are going to need exposure. And yes, you can go back into your room or in that room and kind of, sort it out for yourself. But I would take that as a first step. The next step would be finding the people that are safe to allow into that so that they can also help you see things from different perspectives. Because this gives me the energy of like, I know how the world works, or I know what the patterns are. I know what will happen if I say or do this. But I don't think you're correct. Like, you might be partially correct, or in certain circumstances that would be the case. But again, there's this rigidity that needs to be looked at, to be examined. Especially before it becomes something like an ideology that rules you. Like, for example, we all know that, most people are kind of garbage. Most people kind of suck, right? But don't turn that into a belief that all people are that way, or, that every situation is going to be painful. Because what you're doing is building a tower for yourself and further isolating. And that feels safe. I get why you would do that and why you have done that, and it's worked in the past, right? But is it really serving you currently? Or is it bringing more confusion and chaos? Just because you're, comfortable in the chaos doesn't mean that it's a good thing. Like, yes, you can manage. Yes, you can make it through. You could probably even utilize that chaos, Cancer, to your benefit. But it also feels like that leaves you in survival mode. That could be financially, that could be in terms of your relationships with other people, feeling very alone, feeling in fight or flight, or even freeze. And ignoring that is not doing you any favors. It's in fact what is sort of keeping you from being able to turn this Ace of Wands around, to find that inspiration, to find your fire. It's almost like you've smothered your own inner fire by trying to keep it safe. And I think the first step through this is to find what can rekindle that. What is your fire? What is your passion? What are the things that you deeply care about that perhaps got put on the back burner, or perhaps even, denied, or, at some point maybe you even changed your mind about them? Like, oh, well, now that I know how the world operates, now that I've been doing things for a while, now that I've had experiences with people, I just, maybe I put it in a box and called it naive, or called it weakness. Or I don't really want other people to see it for whatever reason. And then that sort of devil energy became isms and ideology. And be careful about that, Cancer. That can be very detrimental to you. Finding what your fire is and rekindling it will require the burning away of ideas, mindsets, behaviors, isms, and ideologies that you've adapted to survive. And it's going to be a difficult process to let those go, because I think for some of you, those have become part of your personality already. And even so, you can still go through this process. You can still purge those things or recalibrate them as needed. Nothing's set in stone, of course. And if there's anything that you're clinging to for fear of losing it, or perhaps it's something that you hold as the truth, that's what needs the most inspection. That's what needs the most focus. Why do you think so? Why is that a truth to you? Why are you protecting this part of you, or this aspect, or this thing, or idea? And what have you let go of within yourself just in order to survive? And how do you get back to those pieces? How do you regain them? How do you retrieve the parts of you that are softer, that are kinder to yourself even? And those things can be retrieved. It's just you have to allow your inner child out of the tower, of the room, and you have to allow it to be seen. And again, that doesn't have to be by everyone. Safe people, of course, at least first, going forward. And if you're dealing with a situation with a certain person, I don't think that putting more focus onto that situation, or being afraid of that situation, or even, putting energy onto it is going to help. Because I feel like there are, there's someone, or, maybe it's a group of people, I'm not sure your situation, that you know are watching you, that you know might even want to see your downfall, or might want to see you struggling, or, you know, whatever the case is there. And I think to that situation, person, people, you should merely adopt the energy of so what? And perhaps you're protecting yourself because of this situation, whether it's past or present. And it's really taken a toll. It's controlled you. And for others of you, I think that's yourself doing that to you. Not wanting to be seen a certain way, not wanting to be judged, not wanting to be misunderstood. But you have to remind yourself that regardless of what you do, you're going to be judged, you're going to be seen, you're going to be misunderstood. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are fully yourself. And you're not allowing this devil energy, this toxicity, this shadow to dictate who that is in your projection of self. Because I think there have been certain situations, Cancer, that have made you have to take on, you know, you have to put on the devil mask so that people don't hurt you. But at this point, I think it's time to lay it down. I think it's time to really look at it. What is it? And do you really need it going forward? Because when you start to stand in your true authenticity, you start to stand in your true power, which requires the integration of the inner child, the integration of parts of you that perhaps you want to lock away. You don't need the mask. You don't need the protection, the shield, whatever metaphor you want to use. And that would be the goal, to get to that point. And just kind of as a final note, be careful about how you're dealing with other people. Especially if you think you know what they're going through, you know who they are, or, you know how they are going to react, or, be careful about jumping to conclusions just because you've been through some things. Because there's a lack of empathy that's growing there. And it's coming out of a need to protect yourself. And you may not even be aware that you are, perhaps perceived as colder or even rude sometimes, or just simply unable to consider or empathize. Which is not you at all. But it's that projection, it's that devil energy, it's that mask. Sometimes our survival mechanisms need to be purged, need to be let go of. Because yes, they brought us here, but going forward, they're not doing much at all. I hope that resonated, Cancer. If you'd like to continue the journey in the garden with me, please do subscribe, like, share, and I hope to see you in the next one.